Hello everybody. So welcome back to another video about furniture from the past. A video which I hope will help you better to distinguish between art quality pieces such as these exceptional armchairs dating back to the year 1835, give or take, and which interestingly, curatorially, significantly conserve their original fabric. Anyway, I hope the videos will help you discern between art quality pieces and then everything else that is ambiguously called an antique. Now we're going to see mahogany chairs of this variety, let's say from this period, certainly a less prized primary material than, say, the rosewood and this beautiful inlay of lemonwood or hollywood that we see here. But nevertheless, we see mahogany chairs of this overall design displayed in various museums in France here, such as the Caillebotte property. And then we'll see a host of them on the online collection of Mobilier National, the French Ministry of Culture's online furniture reserve. That's an excellent resource for any of you interested in furniture from the past or any new collector looking to align their preferences with some form of official taste. These are at least intersubjective measures that we can use to hone our discernment. Nothing quite like museum or government comparisons to inform our collecting. So even if this circa 1835 set abides by those standards, it is going to be a little hard for non-collectors or non-professionals to look past the obviously damaged fabric on these chairs. Not that fabric really factors into an informed evaluation of a work of decorative art, which is a chair or seating, unless you're on the fringe between real collecting and sort of your own retail budget, where you would indeed have to plan to recover these, and that's not going to be cheap. But here we see that effort has actually been taken to sew some of this damaged fabric down to conserve it, and that is because it is the original fabric to the chair, which is very, very rare, and which also, thanks to the pattern of the silk here, allows us to date these chairs pretty precisely to right about the year 1835. So as evidenced by the retention of this original silk after almost 200 years, these chairs really haven't been used much since they were made, and that's part of why they are so solid. I might interject a little tip about best practices for moving pieces like this. As tempting as it may be to grab such a chair like this and lift it up, I just did that successfully, eventually you will yank the chair with a little bit too much vigor and you'll break the arms right here. And that's why so many chairs like this have odd little restorations right here. It's not a big deal. They were joined together there to begin with, but that's a perfect spot for this heavy chair to break when you're lifting it up. So, you know, without getting too practical on all of you academics, the best practices for moving a chair like this are then to grab it by the bottom of the seat, the belt of the chair as it's called in French, and you lift up entirely with your legs, and then you move it around. That's not anything that probably we're all always going to do because it's just so damn convenient to pick them up this way, but it isn't recommended. Anyway, now you know, and back to this original fabric, we can see these beautiful woven galons, these borders here, this webbing, this passementerie. We'll probably order something similar when these chairs are recovered. And then we see the silk borders along here, this 2 centimeter wide section, this beautiful raspberry color, and then these golden, almost oak leaves, foliage with flowers. And then, of course, there's the two-toned pattern of this cramoisi, this rich sort of violet red, raspberry pink, however you want to describe it. And that pattern really reminds us of some of the contemporary reeditions that we will see at Prel, one of the oldest silk manufacturers in France. They have several colors which revive the Louis Philippe period. I tend to like the blue and white one, although there's a blue, a red, a yellow, and an interesting green. Please leave a comment if you have any suggestions as to how these should be recovered, but in all likelihood, the customer and I will just decide that when the time comes. And I think we will donate the fabric, mainly to an archivist, but perhaps we will cut out a section, or I will, and have it framed for the owner, as it wouldn't be uninteresting to have that 100 years from now. So these interesting pieces show us a certain apex of quality during that final decade of the traditional decorative arts, the mysterious and understudied 1830s. And with so many good Louis Philippe chairs in mahogany, presented in various French museums and certainly published, I think it really is special to see a set of 4 in a wood, rosewood here, which is so much more exotic, and which even in this case sports some pretty astonishing inlay. I think these palmettes here are the most successful part of the chair. It's interesting as well to note that there are 2 inlaid fillets that frame the borders of these long rectangular sections, and then of course these fully raised moldings which have been delicately nailed and glued onto the belt of the chair. So it's interesting to see a Louis Philippe armchair in terms of its overall design here, anchored in the style and in the quality of the previous period, the 1820s. Now the scroll here of the Restoration period, the 1820s, has been exaggerated to be more Louis Philippe. And then the legs here, these frog's thigh, cuisse de grenouille form, you know, that's something that belongs to both the Restoration as well as the Louis Philippe period subsequently. And of course the fabric is entirely Louis Philippe. But then the wood color scheme here really harkens back to about 1825, the late Charles X period, when they inverted the color scheme of the original light background, maple background, amaranth dark inlaid pieces of the early Charles X period. So although this term is never used, I suppose we could call them transitional between Charles X and Louis Philippe, because they're really using a wood color scheme and a level of inlay precision, which is decidedly Charles X, with an overall design, and then, of course, a fabric, which dates the chairs well into the Louis Philippe period, circa 1835. In any case, it's really surprising to see chairs like this, to see pieces from this period, because it's an obscure time to begin with in decorative arts history, and for that reason it really wasn't ever copied. And so whether or not one particularly loves this style, I personally am drawn to it. But even if one isn't particularly impressed, it's at least something that you're not regularly going to see, because our visual environment isn't overloaded with hundreds and hundreds upon hundreds of copies of very fine early Louis Philippe, transitionally Charles X chairs, as, say, the more iconic styles in French history, like Louis XVI or Empire or Louis XV. All of that, of course, has been copied extensively. And so even if you're not dealing with the original pieces, those styles are quite recognizable. These, I think, today are interesting to cover because even for those who won't like them, they're at least surprising and probably, I hope, something you have never seen before. So, as usual, everybody, I thank you for your time, and if you've enjoyed this video, if it has helped you in any way, I hope that you'll please subscribe to the channel, as it will greatly help in this endeavor of building an online period furniture library of the most compelling pieces that I traffic, that I find, discover, etc., sometimes even sell. Thank you.